Alright mates, how's it going? In today's video, we're starting a new series. This is the prologue of Rise of the Horde by Christie. Keep in mind this book was originally published in 2006, so like a lot of these novels, there's been some changes in game and stuff since. But I'm just going to go ahead and do what the book says, so let's go! The power that radiated from the stranger was bloody glorious. It was all glowy and angelic-like, and what he was offering was tempting. But still, there was something a little bit off.
It is little enough to ask for what he offers us. Such power, and he speaks the truth. What he shows us will come to pass.
But the third leader of the Eredar, Velen, wasn't quite so sure. There was something about this Sargeras bloke that gave him the goosey boots. The fact that Kil'jaeden, who Velen was quite close with, was inclined to accept the offer was perhaps enough to sway Velen's opinion, but he didn't give a shit what Archimonde thought. Velen then thought about the image Sargeras had shown them, worlds for them to conquer, but more importantly, to explore and investigate. The Eredar were a curious bunch. They bloody loved knowledge, and all Sargeras asked for in return for a buttload of knowledge was loyalty.
As usual, our Velen is the cautious one.
Yeah,
and sometimes my caution has saved us as much as your instinctive impulsiveness.
Both Kil'jaeden and Archimonde laughed at that, and for a moment, Velen was warmed by their affection. But then it went quiet, and Velen's heart sank once more as he realised his two colleagues had already made up their minds. Velen knew that they only wanted what was best for the Eredar, and he shared that sentiment, but there was seriously just something about Sargeras that made him feel weird and dirty. Velen approached the temple, a place he often went when he was troubled and stuff, and there, in all its glory, was the Atamal crystal. It was an artefact so ancient that nobody could remember where the bloody hell it came from, but legend had it that it was bestowed upon them long ago as a gift. It had helped to expand the Eredar's mental abilities, plus it could be used for healing, conjuration, and visions, which was what Velen was hoping to use it for tonight. So, he touched the crystal gently, allowed the familiar power to penetrate him, and closed his eyes. At first, the vision he saw only seemed to confirm what Sargeras had promised. Knowledge, coming out their ears. It was great, but as he turned to look at Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, and caught a glimpse of himself, he cried out in horror. Their bodies were now massive, twisted, and distorted. Light radiated from them, but not the pure light of positive, powerful energy. It was a sickly green.
Minari.
The others arrived almost immediately. Velen had sent out a mental plea and shared his vision with them.
This is not a glimpse into the future that we can verify. It is only your hunch. Archimonde is right. There is no veracity here. Only an image in your own mind.
Balls. Velen then gently detached his thoughts from theirs, which Kil'jaeden took as surrender and placed a hand on his friend's shoulder.
I do not want to give up what I know to be positive and good and true for what I fear might be unpleasant. Nor I think to you.
Velen couldn't risk lying. Kil'jaeden and Archimonde would see right through it. So he just looked down, sighed, and nodded. He knew with terrifying certainty that his friends were now destined to become Minari, something horrifically wrong. And if they knew he was no longer with them, they would turn on him with deadly consequences. A short time later, Velen had returned to the temple and was once again staring at the Atamal crystal, desperate for an escape plan. There was nowhere on this world to hide from a being like Sargeras, so what the bloody hell was he supposed to do? However, as if by magic, the crystal then started to glow and rise slowly from its pedestal.
Touch it. What? Touch it.
So Velen reached out and did what he was told.
Ooh.
Energy then raced through him. It was intense, almost as powerful as the sickly green energy he'd witnessed in his vision. But this was pure, and Velen suddenly felt hope and strength deep inside him.
You are not alone, Velen of the Eredar. We too have sensed the impending horrors about to befall this and other worlds. We strive to keep the balance, and what Sargeras is planning will rip everything apart. Utter chaos and ruination will descend, and the things that are good and true and pure and holy will be lost beyond recovery. What are you? We are the Naru. You may call me Kure. This is where it all begins. We cannot stop it, for your friends have free will, but you have reached out with an anguished heart to save what you can, and therefore we will do what we can. We will save those of you whose hearts reject the horror of what Sargeras offers. What do you need me to do? Gather those who will listen to your wisdom. Go to the highest mountain in the land on the longest day of the year. Take the Atamal crystal with you. It is how we will find you again. We will come down and bear you away.
For a moment, there was a flicker of doubt in Velen's heart. He'd never even heard of a Naru, And now this one was telling him to steal his people's most sacred object and bugger off up a mountain with it. And it seemed to be implying that it was they who had given it to the Eredar in the first place, which was just outrageous. Perhaps Kil'jaeden and Archimonde were right. Perhaps these visions were nothing more than Velen's fear, manifesting itself. Nah, these doubts were just him desperately clinging on to the idea that everything could go back to the way it was, that everything wasn't about to change horribly. The first ally that Velen was able to summon was Taogath, an old dear friend. All rested upon this friend, because he'd be able to move unwatched where Velen could not. Taogath had been a little bit sceptical at first, but once Velen connected their minds and stuff, he quickly agreed. However, Velen didn't bother mentioning the Naru or their plan. He simply assured Taogath that there was a way to escape. And as the longest day of the year drew closer, Velen used his discretion to send out further tendrils of thought to those he trusted. However, when at last the day came, and those that had chosen to follow Velen started to assemble atop the tallest mountain of their ancient world, Velen saw that there really weren't that many of them at all. Not everyone had arrived yet, Taogath for example, but there were only a few hundred here, and that number probably wasn't going to increase drastically, so that was a bit upsetting. Taogath and several others then cleared a rise in the distance, smiling and waving, and for a moment, Velen sighed in relief. But as he started down to meet them, the Atamal crystal sent out a powerful surge of energy through his body, and the old Eredar dropped to his knees. His mind then opened to its warning, and he realised that the new arrivals in the distance were not friendlies at all. They were disguised somehow, but the crystal now revealed that they were in fact Minari, Taogath included. As the Minari scrambled up the mountain, closer and closer, Velen, out of desperation, gripped the Atamal crystal and thrust it upward to the sky. And that worked somehow. A pure shaft of radiant light appeared. Its glory shone directly into the crystalline prism, splintered into 7 distinct rays, and the crystal itself bloody exploded. Velen gasped, but the fractured pieces remained animated, shot upward, joined together to form a spinny circle, and created an enclosure of light around the gathered Eredar below. A deep thrumming sound then descended from above, and as Velen looked upward, he saw what looked like a star. 'Twas glorious.
I am here, as I promised I would be. Prepare to abandon this world, Prophet Velen.
Velen and the rest of the gathered Eredar then began to float upwards, towards the star, and upon closer inspection, Velen realised it was some kind of vessel. The base of the ship then started to open, and the next thing the escaping Eredar knew, they were inside it. But down below, Kil'jaeden watched as the peculiar vessel in the sky shimmered, and then disappeared. Curses! What was that thing that came down and snatched Velen from their grasp? Sargeras will not be pleased.
What now? We find them, and destroy them, even if it takes 1,000 years.
And we're leaving it there! So each chapter has these little thrall interlude type things, and I'm not sure whether I'll bother doing those. Might be less confusing if I just stick with the Draenor stuff, but I don't know. As usual, links in the description for the book, my Patreon page, my Discord, all of that stuff. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!